So we're going to take this. First off, what form is that in right now? Y minus 9 equals 2 times x plus 5. That's in point slope form. Okay, good. Now we're going to go to standard form. Now, standard form is probably one of the most confusing ones, so I'm not going to spend, and it's, I guess it is technically a big deal, but it's not an enormous deal, so I'm not going to spend hours upon hours talking about it. So this is probably the only day I plan on talking about it, maybe some tomorrow. So standard form, let me tell you what the form is to begin with, which you need to have somewhere written on your paper. They call it AX plus BY is equal to C. Okay, so that's what is considered standard form. Let's talk about the A, the X, the B, the Y, and the C. Well, I think the easiest way I remember it is standard form is when you have X and Y, so X and Y on the same side. Okay? Always, always, always have to have X and Y on the same side. So that's the first part. The second part to this is there can be no fractions. There can be no fractions. When I say there can be no fractions, I mean, let's say if A was a fraction, or B was a fraction, or C was a fraction, that cannot happen. So we have to change that. Okay? Not to a decimal, but to a whole number. And we'll talk about how to do that. Okay? So there can be no fractions throughout the whole thing. Okay? Now, the other kind of stipulation is the number, the A value, or the number beside the X, okay, has to be positive. Has to be positive. Okay? Those are the two big, that's the only two things you need to try to remember. Okay? So let me write an equation that's already in standard form. So don't worry about the example up there first. Don't worry about that right now. An example of standard form would be 3x plus 2y is equal to 6. Okay, that's an example of what it'll look like. Okay? That's a typical example of what it'll look like. Notice this, please. Are there any fractions throughout the 3, the 2, or the 6? No. So we're good on that part. Is the A value, or the number beside the X, positive? Yes. So we're good on that part also.
Are you just trying to get the Y in front of everything?
No, the main thing you need to try to remember is you know how slope-intercept form, you were solving for Y. You were getting Y by itself. Well, now you need to remember to get X and Y on the same side now. Okay? You need to try to get X and Y on the same side. That's the easiest way to remember it. Standard form, X and Y on the same side.
The 2 with the negative would be 3x minus 2y. Or was that how it'd be?
If the 2 was negative, it would be 3x minus 2y, yes.
Yeah. So it's still pretty much the same.
Yes.
Company.
Now, let me show you an example that's not in standard form, or would not be considered standard form. Why would this example not be in standard form? Awesome. That negative A, okay, or the negative number in front of the X, tells me that that is not in standard form. So that's not technically in standard form.
You just have the plus 2x?
No.
Or divide?
Well, we can talk about how we can get that into standard form. So let's think about this. So to get this one in standard form, because that's a negative, that cannot happen. It's pretty simple. The only thing that you need to do is multiply both sides by -1. So multiply that whole side by -1 and multiply that that 9 times -1. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay? Now, what's going to happen to all my signs?
They're gonna,
Essentially, they're just going to flip. Okay? Because when you multiply -1 times everything,
it's gonna make that
that's going to be a positive 2x,
-4.
a minus 4y, and a minus 9. Okay? So really,
So would you divide by 1 or -1 if it is that way? Like either, if the 2 is positive.
considered standard form because, first of all, no fractions. Second of all, the x is positive. Okay? And x and y on the same side. So this would be a check now. So that would be correct.
What's above?
Let's talk about this example. Now, what is wrong with this one? It has a fraction. Absolutely. We have a fraction of 1/3 right here. Now, the reason why I talked about multiplying a number times its denominator gets rid of that fraction, this is what you need to do here. What I mean by that is, whatever the denominator is, in this case, what is our denominator? 3. Okay? It's the number in the bottom of the fraction. So 3. Just like we did here, we multiplied everything times -1. Guess what we're going to do here? Yes. You need to multiply everything by 3. Just lay it on my desk, please. Okay? So that's the other side. 3 times everything. Okay? So we're right here. When you multiply the 3 times 1/3, remember, the 3's just cancel, so all you have left is just a 1x. Rob is right. When you multiply the 3 times the y, you're going to get plus 3y. And lastly, when you multiply the 3 times the 2, you get 6. Okay, so that would be in standard form right there. Let's take this point slope form to standard form. Okay? So let's go ahead, Dakota. Turn around, please. Let's go ahead and distribute the 2, just like we would do normally. Okay? So we're going to have y minus 9 is equal to a 2x plus 10. Okay? So all we did right there, first step, let's distribute that 2.
Would you plus 9 just to get the 9 over to the right and get the 2x over to the left?
Now, there's a couple different ways you can go about this next step. I feel like the easiest way is to always get this number beside the y to the other side. Okay? So in this case, we're going to add 9 to both sides. Okay? So now that cancels out on that left side.
That's 19.
So now we have 19 on this side. Perfect. Now, what form is that in? No?
Slope form.
Yes, slope, intercept form. Okay? So we're working here. This one, some of these can be time consuming. So, now, remember, standard form, we need x and y on the same side. How do I get this 2x to this other side? Perfect. We need to minus both sides
2x.
by 2x. Why are we minusing? Because that's a positive. How do we get rid of it on this side and move it over here?
You got to subtract with the negative.
Good. Okay.
So that's
That
gonna
right side's going to cancel.
be negative 2x plus y.
This left side, we have a negative 2x
Plus
plus y is equal to 19.
19. So that's standard form.
Are we done?
Yes. No, because it's a negative.
Perfect. We are not done because that's a negative 2x. How do we get rid of the negative in front of that 2x? Multiply everything, both sides, times -1. Multiply everything on both sides times -1. Okay? And now when you do that, that's going to be a positive 2x. -1 times y gives me a negative y. And -1 times 19 is going to give me a negative 19. And you're done.
That's standard form.
Standard form. 2b to distribute the 4. Okay? So let's go ahead and multiply that out. Now we have y minus 6 is equal to a 4x plus 12. Okay? Let's go ahead and add 6 to both sides. What your next step should have been.
Y equals 4x plus 18.
4x plus 18, good. Okay, now remember standard form, x and y on the same side. Oh my Lord. All this revolves around getting x and y on the same side. Okay, guys. Right. So we need to minus 4x from both sides. So that goes away on that right side, and all we have left is a negative 4x plus y is equal to 18. Now, what is the last thing we need to do?
Divide by 1. Divide by 1.
You could divide everything by 1 or multiply everything by 1. Does not matter, no matter if you do either one of those.
Or -1, right?
Yeah, -1, sorry, -1. So if you multiply everything by -1, and I mean everything on both sides, okay, that'll get rid of that negative 4x, and that becomes a positive 4x minus y and a minus 18. And you're done.